All right, live look at our Storm Smart Sky Cam tonight for the Pink Shelf or Fort Myers Beach. Beautiful, beautiful evening here across Southwest Florida. Got a couple of showers out there, but it looks like it's going to be fairly quiet here for tonight across our area. Looks like that rip current risk, though, will be increasing over the next couple of days as we're expecting westerly winds in the wake of Dorian as it pulls northward, and that onshore wind will make things a little hazardous at the area beaches. Storm Shield 4 Doppler tracking a couple of those showers right now. You can see moving through parts of Lee County. You can see these have been just kind of wrapping around the circulation associated with Dorian. So, again, a couple of showers, maybe a little gusty at times as these move through, particularly through Lehigh Acres now up towards Alvin, Buckingham, through East Lee County. And also we're tracking some other ones with some lightning strikes crossing over the Tamiami Trail, heading down into southern Collier, mainly to the east of Achapi. But that's really about it. And it's not out of the question we could see a couple more of these pop up this evening and rotate their way from northwest to southeast around the back edge of the circulation. But by far, the worst of the weather right now is over on the East Coast, where they are dealing with tropical storm conditions all the way down the Florida East Coast. And we even have a tornado warning in effect right now. You see the eye located just behind me at about, I'd say about 45, 50 miles wide. So it's gotten a little bit bigger. But this tornado warning right now in effect for sections of Brevard, southern Brevard, as well as Indian River County. And what a lot of times what you'll get, and it's happening on kind of on an odd side of the hurricane, because typically you get these tornado threats on the northeast side of the storm based on the way it's moving. So with it moving northwest, the tornado threat would be out into the open Atlantic. But you can see that we're getting these little eddies that are coming in, or these little areas of spin that are now kind of pushing into portions of the Florida coast. And there is a isolated tornado risk, although I don't think it'll be anything extensive like what we typically see on the east side of the storm as they begin to make their way northward. As you can see here, you see that Dorian's kind of lost of its identity. Yesterday, it was just kind of hanging around Grand Bahama, finally starting to pull its way northward. Notice in the last few frames, you see how the tops of the cloud, at least the top of the storm here, looking at it from this perspective, is lifting northward, and the western side is flattening out a little bit. That is as a result of that trough that I was talking about. This is what we were waiting for to turn this thing northward, and it finally arrived. Notice how the western part of the hurricane is flattened out, but the top part of it is lifting up. We call this, at least I call it, the rooster tail, because that's exactly what it looks like. If you jet ski or if you're out in a speedboat and you know the water kind of sprays behind you, kind of looks like a rooster tail. That's what's happening right here as the trough picks it up and begins pulling it northward. So whenever you see this on satellite, that elongated form of the cloud formation here associated with a tropical cyclone, that's a good indication that a trough is interacting with it and beginning to pull it northward. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Winds right now at 110. I really don't expect the intensity to change much with this thing. The wind field has expanded. The tropical storm force winds extend outward now, I believe, about 175 miles from the center. So even if it is offshore, we're going to see tropical storm force winds spreading all the way up towards the first coast, the Georgia coast, the South Carolina low country, and into portions perhaps even as far north as the Tidewater of Virginia, depending on how close to the North Carolina coast it gets. But it looks like many areas along the East Coast are going to be dealing with at least tropical storm conditions, and with a prolonged easterly flow as it moves northward, we're going to see all this water being piled up in this general direction. So easily a 4 to 7 foot storm surge possible across parts of the North Carolina coast down to South Carolina and maybe even down into Georgia. But still expected to be a Category 2 hurricane, even as it makes its way northward Thursday, Friday, just off the Carolina coast. And by the time we head towards the weekend, it's going to be up in the Canadian Maritimes. We have new tropical systems out there. This is tropical storm Fernan that just developed here early this afternoon. It's going to be affecting Mexico, not going to be a threat to the U.S. at all. And last but not least, we've got Tropical Depression 8, which formed earlier today. 5 o'clock advisory on that. Winds at 35. Going to be staying way out in the open Atlantic. So here's Dorian heading up the East Coast. Notice that we don't have much going on here at all. Some drier air is going to get pulled in back behind this thing. So it'll be a little breezy tomorrow. We'll have a slight chance for rain. But the rest of the week actually is looking fantastic in the wake of this thing with that drier air pulling in. Not going to really hardly see any chances for rain through Friday and perhaps even to part of the weekend as well. Let's take a look at those wind gusts as this thing makes its way northward. You can see through tomorrow morning still looking at tropical storm force wind gusts all along the Florida coast, all the way from the Space Coast up towards Jacksonville, then the Florida coast, or the Georgia Georgia coast, I should say, up towards Savannah. The South Carolina coast, I think this is where it's going to make its closest pass to the U.S., the South and North Carolina coast, and that's where we're likely going to see perhaps some wind gusts getting up close to hurricane force. But I do think the strongest winds, though, will be staying offshore with this system as it moves northward. So tonight, a few isolated showers. 77 your overnight low, and 91 here for tomorrow, with a few showers and storms tomorrow afternoon. The chance for rain is only about 30%, so likely going to see lots of sunshine here for tomorrow, at least more than that than rain. Here's your forecast on the water. Ingham Marine forecast calls for seas running 2 to 4 feet with a northwest wind at 10 to 20 knots. Inland waters will be a little choppy. 7-day forecast. Highs in the low 90s here for the rest of the week, and mostly dry Thursday through the weekend, and then we'll start to pick back up with some of those rain chances heading into next week.
We know preparedness is key during